Here we go. There's Bethany, Sadie. I just love seeing you guys sort of fly in.
Hi.
Hi there. How's everybody doing?
Hi, Dr. Grossman. Hey, Bethany. Hi, how are you?
You've both been very busy today.
Lots of emails, I'm sure.
Me too. Busy day. I'm sure Jill will be here in a minute. And I don't know about Laya. You know, last week she sort of invited herself. She was just real excited about our graphic novel exploration, you know. But she is in the Philippines, so, you know, she got the invitation, but, I mean, there could be roaming charges, who knows, with an international call. So I don't know whether to expect her or not. It would be fun.
It was nice to have her.
Yes, that was the feedback I got, that you really enjoyed meeting and talking with her. And she's inspiring, my goodness. To have one, yes, please.
So articulate and just, I don't know, I was just impressed. Everything she said, I was like, wow, she's how old?
Yeah. She's got the confidence and the competence down pat there. She's very impressive. Yeah. When I work with the students, and again, I see them every 2 weeks for, it could be 8 years. I mean, just for years. And then when they go out, usually it's like 4 or 5 years. But then when they go out into the world, it's just, I think, I wonder what they're going to do. You know, I just wonder what they're going to do. They're so talented. And, oh, the world is their oyster there. Well, hi, Jill. How you doing? Is school out for the summer?
Her voice is muted.
Yeah, that's okay, but she's smiling big.
Sorry, yeah. Today was the last day of school, so I'm really happy.
That's why she's smiling big. Well, cool. Well, I was just saying that Laya may pop in or may not. There is a 12 hours difference there, so I hope she's having so much fun she won't even be thinking about us. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, but let me start by showing you something that just popped up today, and I thought this is so appropriate for tonight's conversation. Before you marry a person, you should first make them use a computer with slow internet to see who they really are. Oh, I can relate. Will Ferrell at his best. Okay. So very appropriate for tonight, when we'll spend quite a bit of time talking about technology and how it's changing things. Plan. Well, update that. Boy, that was quick. This is planned for week 4. And there's an access link. If you go to the week 4 hangout on the website, learn that will make it easy if I go to the website to show you something that you can be there and on another frame, screen, or tab window yourself. So the first half, we're going to talk about sequential art, and part of that was because I thought Laya might show up, and so I thought that would be best time for her. And then second half, we'll talk about, with Bethany leading off, the CCI, technology and literacy and literature. And then the third half is we'll plan for our student collaborative critical inquiry for next week. That Sadie is leading off and has gotten started for us, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the first question is going to be, what is sequential art? And what I plan to do is, well, first of all, tell me what books you read, okay? And we'll just go around and just tell me. You don't have to give us your anything about description yet. There's no book talks yet. I'm just very, very curious what books you read.
I read Not Simple by Natsume Ono.
Oh, you took Laya's advice.
I did.
That is so cool. I can't wait to hear it. And she will be interested. I'll be able to tell her at book club tomorrow.
Definitely.
Well, no, I won't. She's in the Philippines. But, you know, yeah, I'll email her. Okay. What did you read, Sadie?
I read
Oh, I know.
Confidential.
Yes.
Cool.
Cool. All right, 2 very different ones.
I
I can't.
Cool.
What? You wait. Which one?
The Plain Janes?
Oh, that's so cool! I can't wait to hear how you liked it. All right. All right. And I read, we'll see, Tales from Outer Suburbia by my very, very favorite graphic artist, and this is Sean Tan. He also wrote The Arrival, which was an honor book for Prince a few years ago, wordless picture book. Okay. So let me do just, before we talk about them, I want to set this up, frame it so that we're looking at a really interesting theory about how to look at literacy. And Oliver joined us. Cool! This is great! I am so pleased to see you. How are you doing, Oliver? Oh, you're silent. Oh.
Sorry.
That's a good. There you go. How you doing?
I'm okay. I talked to Mandy today about things, so.
Oliver is the Lord of all things
All
for
things.
our big event tomorrow night, and I'm going to invite them. And you invited them when you spoke too. So that's they've got a lot of weight on their shoulders. Well, we're talking about graphic novels, and I'm going to start by talking about this theory, okay, about how digital technology is changing literacy and literature. And so let me make sure I'm showing you my picture here. There you go. Okay. So has anybody ever used the tool on Flickr called Flickr Poet?
No?
It's a lot of fun. I was just playing with it, and it's not working quite the way it used to. But when I made this slide last semester, what you do is you can put in a poem, as many words. I'm sure there's a limit, but I just put in like a phrase. And in this case, I just put in the name of the theory, radical change, and it gives pictures from Creative Commons. Okay. So it just randomly pulled up this picture for radical, which is pretty radical, and this lovely picture for change. And so you get this totally spontaneous and unpredictable images to go with your poem. So it's a very cool tool to do that. I can tell you that radical change is a theory about, again, how digital literacy is evolving and is influencing all literacies, okay? And it was actually theorized. I'm getting a lot of thumpity. Yeah, okay. It was actually, thank you. It was actually theorized by Eliza Dresang, which is D-R-E. I can type that in the chat here. D-R-E. She just passed away recently, sadly. But she came up with this like in 1991. When most of us were just getting into the internet. I think it was like Person of the Year in 1992. So it was just getting started. But her theory is essentially that radical change is happening in the world of where literacy and literature and digital technologies meet. And it's because of the interactivity, the connectivity, and the access that digital technology brings for us. And so our literacies, our literature is evolving. And in many ways, and not that a lot of people would say that we're worried that the book will kill God. God is dead. The book is dead. The book is dead. And but not that at all. She's saying in her theory that she's predicted, and since the 90s, I think she's been right, that the digital technology is only increasing reading and writing as we knew it, and is adding so many new ways to communicate. Okay? And with her theory, she said that there are basically three ways that digital literacy is changing literature. And I'm going to ask you guys to mute because I'm still getting this little feedback kind of thing that and it's rhythmic, so it's like driving me crazy. So if you would mute your mics, that'd be great. Okay. And if it's me, no, that's nice and silent. But don't forget to unmute when you want to speak. Okay. So there's 3 basic ways. She's saying the form and the format is changing. And there's an example here of American-born Chinese. Anybody read that? I know you mentioned it, Jill. Yeah. And a few years ago, that may have been before you joined, Oliver, we had that book, actually Win the Prince. Not our prince. That was the year of the book thief. Woohoo. Yeah, yeah. John Green actually, to gossip here, John Green actually said that the American Library Association Official Prince Committee, well, let's just say, really didn't choose correctly when it came to the book thief. He was a big fan of the book thief. Okay. But, it was what they look for, again, not only elements of literary quality, but does it push the genre? Does it evolve? Okay. What we know is young adult literature, and a graphic novel of that quality did. Okay. So, form and format is changing because of digital technology. Oh, and it's only been like about 5 years later. Jing Yuan Yang actually has Boxers and Saints, which we read. Now, did you read that, Oliver? Oh, you want to say something about that book? Was it different form and format than any other book for you?
It read like a graphic novel. I think I read Boxers because I borrowed that from Reed while he was doing other things.
Okay, and he really liked the books, but he read them backwards.
Yeah, I don't expect anything else. But
okay.
But I enjoyed it. I liked the form. I felt that the format having 2 books as really just being one was different in a way, but it still read more like so it was a graphic novel. It's what I consider like comic book, where you have more than one.
Well, that's interesting because one of the things I was going to try to help explain, as well as I understand, the difference between comic books and graphic novels is that a comic book is pretty much a serialized story. And so you can expect the next in the series. And they're shorter, and for that reason, they're usually not as complex in themselves, whereas a graphic novel is a one-time thing. I mean, there can be sequels, but it's pretty much complete in itself, so there can be more complexity to the storyline. And one thing interesting to me was that manga is usually, the Japanese form of sequential art is usually considered graphic novel because it is a complete story and more complex. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yeah. I feel like the lines kind of get blurred a little bit as you dig deeper into the genres, but
it actually unblurred a lot for me. But yeah, you're right. There's still some. I mean, what is complex and when is the story actually complete? Yeah, I agree. But yeah, these books were amazing because it's the same story from 2 different perspectives told in 2 different books. And it's historically a historical fiction. It's not really. I don't know. It may be more considered nonfiction, but I don't think I've seen it described as nonfiction. It's historical fiction would be the best description for this because there are invented characters. It's literary nonfiction at best. Okay, so form and format changing. The next way it's changing would be by perspective, and I used this book from this year that we've had several good conversations about because I thought this was a very unique perspective to hear from this young person and to come to know his voice and his way of thinking. What do you guys think? Do you think this fits for a different perspective, perhaps, than you usually hear?
Absolutely, it does.
Yeah, good, good. So that's a theory with radical change. It opens things up. So perspective-wise, it gives us multiple perspectives and perspectives we maybe never heard before. Now the other one, and if you remember, I showed you Oliver's poem, Dear YA Author, and they had just completed talking about two boys kissing, which, what will you tell us, Oliver? Won an award, didn't it?
It did. Let me say, please. Two Boys Kissing is a book by David Levithon that talks. I thought it something really nice is that it showed it followed several different queer and trans gender characters. Some were queer, some trans. And they show very different perspectives. But what I really liked of the fact that it actually showed different perspectives was the narration. Was essentially a choir of gay men who had died in the 80s from AIDS, looking into this future and telling these kids a story.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. It was very moving. But I think this book pushes the boundaries. I think as as comfortable as our book club was in talking about this, I think this would be very difficult in your typical public school and might not even be included in the library collection. So pushing the boundaries here. And I love that it won our Ezra Brain Social Justice Award. That was an award that he inspired with his interest in social justice. And I think this was the second time that we made that award. So a very important award for us. Okay. So you've heard about these different I guess, variables or categories that Drisong in her theory came up with. And so now what I'd like for us to do is think about your sequential art example. I'm going to skip down to, is this a radical change book? And what we're going to do, I was telling Bethany this afternoon about a tool called TitanPad. And so what we're going to do is go to TitanPad, and I'll bring it up here so that you can see it. But you can go ahead there yourself. And I also have these listed on the Week 4 Hangout, so you can take a look at those too, whatever's easier for you to do. And it's in the chat too. But the beauty of this is that as you type, you can write your name in over on the top right and choose your color. So everything you write will be in a different color. So it's sort of a nice way to color code, not like Google Docs, right, Oliver, which just drives you crazy when people start changing the colors.
Yeah, I have a thing about that.
Yeah, this is a very easy tool to use. So what I would like for you to do is consider, we've just talked about radical change and books with different formats, different perspectives, different boundaries they're pushing. And the first question is, and let me put this on the screen, although you're looking right at it, I'm sure, too. So let's see. Oops. Go to... There you go. Okay. And I chose my favorite color and even wore a shirt to match. But so first off, do you think your title of your book, okay, do you think your book is, write down your, simply type the title if you think that it is, let's see, simply type the title and author here and explain its traditionalism if you don't think it's one of these, okay? And then down below, type your name and the author, and list which ones you think apply. Is it form and format? And you can't do tables in this, so very sorry, but just do the best you can in putting your title or something to represent which of these categories you think your book belongs to, okay? Everybody found the page? It's going okay? Yeah, I see. Isn't this fun? Oliver, if you read a graphic novel lately, you can you can add it too. You can add boxers.
How do we choose the second part?
All I'm going to do is just type my title
Okay.
under it. Like I just put tails under form and format.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, because we don't have a table. Sorry. And the interesting thing, like we were talking about boxers and saints, I mean, that would definitely fit under form and format. And that would not even have been thought of when this theory, was first developed in the 1990s, that you would actually do two books like that. Now, was that encouraged by digital technology? We shape our technology and it shapes us. Okay. And then Middle School Confidential, I love that title. Okay. So Plain Jane's is a traditional graphic novel format. And again, it's all relative. In the 90s, it might have been a little bit more different, but now we're pretty much used to graphic novels. So there you go. Boxers and Saints. Yes. It is radical change. I think it was so radical the Prince Committee couldn't consider it because it was two books. And the varying perspectives like that. It's very common these days to have a book with a chapter in which every other chapter has a different perspective. Or like a book I'll tell you about where every chapter has a different perspective. The book Please Ignore Vera Dietz by A.S. King, which was a Prince honor a few years ago, actually had even I want to say it was like a Chinese pagoda in the town. Well, it had a chapter from its perspective. So I mean, it's very unusual to have lots of different perspectives, but maybe not a whole book from different perspectives. So it looks like we're seeing that Not Simple actually. Why am I not surprised that the book that Laya recommended actually fits under boundary pushing here? You want to tell us why? Let's start with that one. Tell us about Not Simple.
Sure. It was my first graphic novel experience, so I really liked it. I think I was surprised by like the heaviness of the content. I think like the pictures are kind of deceptively childlike, and the content was it was tough, but it's kind of told with this like bookend feel. It starts with a prologue and an epilogue, and I don't really know how to simplify it, but I'll try. It's about this kid who is trying to find his older sister, who actually turns out is actually his mom, and he, along his way, traipsing across the United States, he finds this lady, and they have this like moment together, and she is actually leaving her family. He convinces her not to, and then they say, oh, in 3 years we'll meet again, and we'll see like where we are and if we're different people. And no spoilers, but it's a really compelling story. I definitely enjoyed it, but I thought that it it was definitely unique in, what are our categories again? In the format, it's the cover. Well, I have an ebook, but the first page and the last page are in color, but the rest of the novel is black and white, which I thought was really interesting. And just the simplicity of the drawings. That obviously I don't have a lot of experience with graphic novels, but I thought it was very like no nonsense, very simple. And then as far as boundaries, the kid who's the main character has a lot of like, well, obviously his sister is actually his mom, so that's really involved. But so like his dad and his sister had like this thing, and he's like the result of that. And his mom, who's actually not his mom, who he grows up thinking is his mom, it like hates him because of it, and she actually sells him to like a pimp, and so like he's basically in like child porn, and yeah, and like it's very like it's sort of just alluded to. So at first I was like, did that just happen? But yeah, so it's definitely very honest and open about that stuff. And then like most of the main characters are gay, and somebody in the book dies from AIDS, and so it definitely deals with some more controversial issues and harder things as far as YA goes. But yeah, did I answer your question?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah, that it pushes boundaries for sure. And I was just you don't by any chance, I meant to look that up to see what grade, if it actually is a YA novel.
I don't know.
Yeah. I know that I think the other one she mentioned
Wasn't.
Sin City is not.
Like here, I'll show you the picture. I don't know if you can see it, but can you tell at all what it looks like? It looks like really childlike to me.
Yeah, it does.
You think, oh yeah, no, no.
Yeah. Huh. Okay,
But
well,
it was good. I mean, I would recommend it.
I often find that I remember that Oliver knows Lauren Nicholson, who's the daughter of, and I'll talk about her because she's really into graphic novels, but she's the daughter of our book club facilitator. But when she was earning her BA over at UNC, she fell in love with graphic novels. Took a course, and it's a passion for her now. So this is Lauren. This is she's older. You may not have been in book club with her, Oliver.
I have not met her.
Yeah. She's great. She's done sessions for me on graphic novels here before. Okay, well, Amazon's taking a long time to come up, so we'll just wait and see what they say about Not Simple. Okay. Let's see any other book. We don't have. Well, Plain Jane sort of pushed boundaries, really?
I think it more encouraged the reader to push boundaries, I would say. Just because there's a lot of controversy in the book about the difference between public art, like street art, and like graffiti, some would call it, versus vandalism or trespassing. And so I guess it somewhat pushed boundaries in that way, but I definitely don't think it pushed boundaries as much as Not Simple. So relatively speaking, no, I guess I might want to take it away from push.
Well, no, it can still push. I like the way you said that. It pushed boundaries for the reader. Well, what age level would you think would be the reader, the audience for this book?
Middle school, 6th to 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
It could be read by high schoolers as well. It takes place in a high school, but I think it's accessible to 6th graders as well.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it?
I did. I really did enjoy it.
That's cool. I did too. Do you want to tell us just briefly a little about it?
Absolutely. The main character, Jane, in the very beginning of the story, we find out that she was involved in a bombing in a large city that's just called some sort of metropolis, or some play on the word metropolis. And when I was reading, it really reminded me of the Boston bombing, and I think it was maybe written around then too. But anyways, Jane's parents are terrified to live in the city because she was actually there really close to where the bombing happened, and she was knocked unconscious, and she actually saved someone's life. And he is known as John Doe because he didn't have his wallet with him, but he did have a sketchbook. And so Jane visits him every day in the hospital when she still lives in the metropolis. And then when her parents move her away to suburbia, she steals his sketchbook. And she's trying to figure out her life and figure out who she is in her high school in this boring town. And she really wants to go back to the city. And so she starts writing letters to John Doe. And she decides that the world needs more art, and she kind of like seeks out the misfits at our school. The popular kids want her to sit with them, but she sits at the kind of outcast table, and it turns out that everybody's name at that table is Jane or has Jane in it in some way, spelled differently, and there's even a Polly Jane. And they're all into different things. One's a theater geek, and one is totally into sports, and one's like a science nerd. Anyway, they kind of ignore each other and ignore her at first, and then she gets them into art, and they form this club called People Love Art in Neighborhoods. So they become the Plain Janes, and they conduct art attacks, they're called, and they're just it's really like performance art or street art. And because of the recent bombing and because of the danger in the city, they're seen as attacks, and the government enforces all of these curfews and all of these restrictions, and they try to find out who the Plain Janes are, and so that just causes a lot of problems in the story. And you find out more about John Doe later on, but I'll just let you read it. I really enjoyed it. It was really good.
Well, that's great. That's great to hear. It actually is an older book.
Really?
It's a long. Now, it was written. Probably it was the Twin Towers bombing, with the 9/11 bombings that it was in response to. Yeah, it's that old.
It's interesting then how it, I don't know, just presented it in such a generic way that it could remind the reader of any, unfortunately, any terrorist attack that's happened or that they have a connection with.
Yeah, they really could. Well, I have a response for the book Not Simple book list. Journal recommends it for grades 10, 12. Okay.
That makes sense.
And it also, they would pair it with Adam Rapp's Punkzilla from 2009, which was not well loved by the book club. That was before your time, Oliver. But some of my students really enjoyed it. There are bookcasts on that book. I'll add them to the, if they're not out there already, I'll add them to the playlist on YouTube so you can take a look at it. Okay. Tell us about Middle School Confidential, Sadie. But unmute first.
Can you hear me now? It's more like a counseling book. There are like stories of 6 teens in high school, what happened on them, and how do they feel. And there are like suggestions from real teenagers everywhere, and also from the counselors. And also there are some quizzes to test how do they feel whenever they have, confronted any difficulties in school, and also some tips of how they become confident of what they are. It's very
so that's what the confidential means.
That's
really
it's like a kind of self-help book. Like each student should have one.
Yeah. Do you think students would like? It's not preachy, is it?
Sorry, what does it be?
Oh yeah, I probably. It doesn't come on too strong. The stories would be interesting to students.
Yeah, there are normal stories that happen in every child.
Oh, well, that's good. Yeah, sometimes we can be, rather than preachy, I should say teachy. It's not too teachy. It's something that kids would actually enjoy.
Do you think that would be something good for me to read with my 6th graders at the beginning of the year?
I think so, yeah. I really highly recommend this one.
Okay, thanks. I'll read it this summer.
Yeah, and the graphic novel format, would be appealing too. They think it was something different. I do think that's part of the attraction of graphic novels. It doesn't look so teachy. It doesn't look so school-like. Okay. Well, thank you guys. That was interesting to see the books we've read, and let me get back on track here. Yeah, and how we think they may represent radical change. Let me fill you in because I have been switching back and forth with graphic novel, sequential art. The actual sequential art title, which I'm trying to use more and more these days, because let's face it, the book that Sadie just talked about, Middle School Confidential, is not a graphic novel because it's not a novel. So, talk about blurring lines there. There's plenty. I think it gives more credibility to books, to stories that are told with images, with pictures. If you have a name that doesn't imply that it's not true. Okay. There's actually, we're talking 9/11. There's actually a graphic novel of the 9/11 report. So certainly nonfiction can be represented in this, and it's not a genre. It's an art form, is what Scott McCloud would call it, and it can hold all these ideas and images and genres and styles, and it's just as varied as plain old text would be that we're so familiar with. Now, I sort of went out there, and this is my graphic representation of sort of the history of sequential art. So if you think about with images, the first efforts to communicate symbolically were on cave walls, okay, and cave wall paintings. And then, and of course the alphabet was invented, and people could, scribes could draw and could write. The printing press, though, was the big divider where couldn't print pictures at that point, could just typeset. So it was print alone, and that was a great separator of text and image. There's actually a book, The Goddess and the Alphabet, by Leonard Shlain, in which he says that made the biggest difference in marginalizing women too, because at that point men sort of took more control over the symbolic communication, and they were the ones who were the readers, the writers. It's just a very, very interesting theory about, and he would say that our brain was whole. We were using our brains more holistically when we're using images and text, and then text alone sort of made us more left-brained, which everyone isn't as, let's just say, but we can be at our best when we use both sides of the brain. So after the printing press, then, digital technology brought images and text back together again. And some would even say that images are dominating at this point. But anyway, finding the happy medium there. And so, of course, that's changing the literacies that we need, too, as well as our literature. Sequential art simply means that it's images tell a story in a sequence. Okay, so it's a train of elements or represented in images that tell a story. And the first sequential art story was Godfrey August Burgers. And when I saw that middle name August, I thought of Gus from The Fault in Our Stars. But anyway, Leonardo and Bladine was the first, and it was a story of a princess who falls in love with her father, the king's one of the courtiers in his castle, and he's promised her to somebody else, and so he kills the guy, and she mourns, and and mourns herself to death, and that's why she's resting in peace. So that was considered the first. And then in the 1930s, there were, what are they called? Funnies on parade, and action comics were real popular. And sometime, I didn't add this here, but I was reading, sometime back in the 50s, there was actually a book written called Seduction of the Innocent. You know how even these days somebody will sort of go out there and do a book, it becomes popular. There was a congressional hearing about comic books and how they were damaging the youth in our country. So it was fascinating. But comics did survive, even though the comic book industry had to police itself, and they had the Comic Code of Authority. So this book has been approved. Okay. But then in the 80s and 90s, thanks to a couple of British guys, Alan Moore, who wrote, the most famous is probably Watchmen, and Neil Gaiman, who we all really love. The Sandman is probably his most famous graphic novel. And then he wrote Coraline, but it's nothing like The Sandman. These were truly graphic, as in explicit. I have had students when they saw the syllabus and saw that they were to read a graphic novel were like, whoa, I've never read one of those before. And not thinking as in images, but thinking as in for mature audiences. And so you sort of got this distinction between comics were for kids and graphic novels were for adults, mature audiences. And so that's all changing now. That's all changed over the last few years. Any question about that? That was like the shortest ever intro to sequential art. Yeah, because you can read more about this because hopefully you'll be really interested. Lauren, who I mentioned, Lauren Nicholson, who fell in love with graphic novels, shared these slides in a presentation that I have linked. She's been to the book several times to do a presentation on her favorite graphic novels, and you can watch that. That's on week 4's archives. But she talks about basically 4 different kinds. There's the superhero, okay, which is long-lasting, continues. Manga, which is Bleach was the one that. Would you consider Not Simple? Is that manga? Or probably it wasn't, where you had to read from the back to the front.
Yeah, it's Japanese, so it was back to front. But I don't know what's considered manga, so maybe it was.
Well, if it were back to front,Id say it definitely was. It was. Good for you. Was that hard to get used to?
Yes. It was. I'm going to write about it in my reflection, but yeah, it was part of the experience for sure, but it wasn't all positive. It was definitely... like the way the text even was with the different text blocks, I was like, I don't know where to start, and yeah, I got used to it eventually. But.
Yeah, I've been through that, yeah. Okay, that's cool. So manga, and again, manga pretty much is much more complex and tells a pretty much complete story, although they can have sequels, of course. There's whole sequels to them. There's a whole series, but they're not short bits. They're more complex stories as they go along. There could be independent ones like Bone and Plain Jane there. Lauren introduced me to Plain Jane. American Born Chinese. And then there's the adaptations. That everything from Nancy Drew to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Coraline I mentioned from Neil Gaiman. Okay, so those are basically the different types, and within that, there's plenty of really interesting stuff that we can share with students, and it has a real appeal. Again, it almost seems like they're getting away with something that that they normally wouldn't in school, but that is changing since we're using graphic novels more and more.
What do you think about using like adaptations in the classroom?
Oh, well, I just last week met in a book club. Let me come back here. I just last week met in a book club with a former student of mine. I think I quoted him. I did. I quoted Alex in my blog for this week. He actually was already into graphic novels, and he was so excited about them that he wrote his dissertation about the effect of reading comprehension from reading graphic novel version of Shakespeare versus Shakespeare as it typically is, okay, the play. And what he found was that students had much deeper understanding, and I'm thinking he taught at Broughton and that he taught advanced classes, and he was very serious, and some might say took a risk when he was doing this, but he really believes in the power of adaptations of graphic novels like this, and again saw it pay off. You can go to that link and actually read his dissertation or check it out from my blog. But he found that, again, students really enjoyed it. It was a more pleasant experience, and they learned more and got more out of it. And he said, as some people might say, well, it takes away the imagination because you're seeing someone, it's sort of like a movie, you're seeing somebody else's interpretation. But he would say, well, you know what? Shakespeare wasn't even meant to be read.
Right.
You would be watching it as a play anyway. Good point. Yeah. Okay.
This is interpretation too.
Okay, well, we are ready. Unless there's questions about sequential art, graphic novels, I'm glad everybody had a good experience, even taking it with trying to learn to read again. Had a good experience with your first graphic novel in some cases. Do you want to take a brief break and then we go into our collaborative critical inquiry?
That sounds good.
Okay, grab something to drink. I would drink from my cup, but my little cat just came along and took a sip. Thank you. Okay, the gang's all here. Okay. So, do you want to start off, Bethany, and tell us the question you chose and get us rolling?
Sure, let me pull up everything.
Mm-hmm.
I have it. Too many windows. Okay. Eventually I will do a screen share here in a bit, but is it okay if I have everybody share apps first? Is that all right?
Yeah, oh yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. So I think I saw everybody's tweets, but would you guys just take a moment and talk about some of the apps that you tweeted about and why you like them? Yes, no, maybe.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up the store if somebody else wants to start.
I was going to pull up my Twitter feed to remind myself of which.
Oh, yeah.
Tweeted.
I used like a bunch of them, too, so you don't have to talk about all of them, but I can start if you want. You guys can pull up your stuff, but I shared StoryKit, which is an app actually used last semester in a class. We created a unit just using like mobile apps and connecting it to our content area, and It's pretty user-friendly. It's free. Actually, I think it's 99 cents. But it comes with all these like digital versions of classic novels on it. But you can create like your own slideshow. You can record voiceover, like VoiceThread. You can like draw, like paint on it. You can add images, text, pretty much anything. So you can kind of create like your own digital story, or I would even use it as like an alternative, obviously not quite as professional looking as PowerPoint, but it could be done by students in groups, or it could be done as like a reflection on a book, or anything really. I think that the options are endless. But yeah, that's one of my new favorites that I just discovered. So yeah, who else?
Oh, let me just add, I just placed a link to, I think I caught everybody's. I use Storify, one of my very favorite curating tools, to place your links on. So you can remind yourself of which ones you sent us.
Thanks for doing that.
Cool.
Yeah, and I also, well, I can take it off the page. I also included on this week one that I did for, this is fun, you might be able to use this too, Jill, one that I did for a unit that I did for, let's see, let me go back, a group of 7th graders, and it was using digital storytelling to learn science. And so I did one on critically evaluating websites. And it was, I used things like the Pacific Northwest octopus. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay. Well, you shouldn't, because it's not true. It's a hoax. Anyway, I had all these hoax sites. Again, you might be able to use this. It's fun. But I use Storify, so it's very easy to use. All right, next.
Sorry, I was checking that out. I used Pinterest a couple of times this year. I can post a link to one of the unit pages on my class website, but we read Peak as my whole team actually read it in November this year, and we did a whole survival unit, and we also pulled in a lot of like nonfiction stories and articles and things like that about survival. But before we read the book, we kind of front loaded and did an anticipation activity, and the students got to go to, I had a Pinterest board that had a bunch of different articles and videos and things like that on it about climbing Everest, and so the kids got to investigate that ahead of time. And then also they would use their they would use Pixlr to create photo collages of vocabulary words and things that went with them, and use the text tool to add definitions and examples and sentences. And then I would pin those pictures to Pinterest to create like online vocabulary walls, and then embed that into my website so they could use it as a study tool.
That's really cool.
It really is, and I know they love that, and I bet that's something that parents could appreciate too.
It's so visual. I love the visual nature of Pinterest anyways, and especially, I like that about Tumblr too. I definitely think images dominate text at this point, which may or may not be a good thing, but I mean, it is what it is, and so like appealing to what they see and what they're used to. I feel like that, like the graphic novel, they feel like it's not as much work per se. But yeah, that's awesome. I've never seen Pinterest like used. I saw it used as an icebreaker, having students create like a board that explains like themselves or whatever. But that's really awesome.
Thanks.
What about you, Sadie?
I have used the YouTube and the note-taking software in my class, and I have like asked the students to create a kind of video about the news recently, and my students, they would go everywhere to take pictures or to record some videos, and then they will combine them together, the clips together. I didn't know what kind of software they use, but most of the students, they go to kind of technology company to ask some people to help to create the full video. And for the note taking, every student, if they want to use the phone, the only way they use the cell phone in my class is to take notes, and then after class they will share on the website. It's a kind of like Chinese Facebook, that they could share the notes that they took in my class. I have only used this too.
That's awesome.
It is.
Cool. Well, I was just going to share the Padlet, so I'm going to try and do that, and hopefully technology will be my friend and everything will be okay. And we can look at that together. Did it work?
It works.
Okay, cool. So, kind of the structure for tonight, I was just going to see if we could go through some of the questions, specifically questions 1, 2, and 4, and then we're going to do an activity and help kind of collectively answer question 3. So I guess we'll just start at the beginning. What is digital storytelling and what part should it play in the classroom? Did you guys watch all the videos that Dr. Chrisman posted? Yes.
It's okay. You didn't have to watch all of them.
Did you
I
guys?
didn't get a chance to watch all of them, no.
Okay. Did you watch the ELL one?
No.
Oh,
Sorry. Last week of school. Also, I just have to say my apartment flooded this week. It's been crazy.
Oh, no. Oh, my goodness. I'm so sorry.
Everything's okay, but I just had to say that. It's not just an excuse. It really happened.
Oh, my goodness. Well, fortunately, after school was over, huh?
No, I mean it happened. It happened this Monday, and so I've been dealing with it like
Oh,
during
no.
school. It's crazy.
Oh, I am sorry.
Thank you.
okay. No pressure. Definitely go back and watch that one. It was really, really good. It sounds kind of like what Sadie is having some of her students do. Did you watch the videos, Sadie?
No, not yet.
Okay. That's fine. It's really, really good. So what do you guys think? Do you have any answers to the question?
Well, I do. Let me. One of the things, and see, that's the beauty of the collaborative critical inquiry is you don't just collect resources, but you get. It's sort of like beginning with this layer of your resources, but then you layer on what every participant brings to it. And so when you collect like this, you're getting what people know as resources and what people think about things. And they give you that different perspective. So you get the critical thinking going on even before you meet for the discussion. So that's the real value in terms of this pre-part for the collaborative critical inquiry. It's actually a form of flipping. You're flipping the classroom. But one of my worries was that I'm afraid digital storytelling sounds like something, I don't know, fancy and just really new and different. And I mean, it's just simply, it's regular old storytelling, but you're learning some digital tools and some perhaps new elements to learn to tell your story. But it's still the same thing we've always been teaching is how to tell a good story. I loved a quote I heard today from Brené Brown, who said that stories are data with soul. So even when you're teaching in science, I'm convinced I would have been a scientist if my science teachers had used stories, had used data with soul in my classes. But some of us everybody craves stories to some degree, but some of us more than others. But I think once teachers get over that, the original hurdle of making their first movie. That's why even in a short 5 weeks, I just say one book cast, okay? Because I thought if you could just do one, then that would help you get over any sort of hesitancy about trying to make movies, okay? And you guys have come through so beautifully with your drawings and making still photographs and just doing and mind maps and doing. Nobody's written music yet, Oliver, but we've had some very creative things going on. So that's the idea with digital storytelling. It doesn't have to be video, but it should be a range of stills, images, music, and being able to put those all together to tell a story is definitely a 21st century literacy. Moving from skills to literacy. And I recommended in my little comment, Digital Storytelling 101, if you ever look at my Google Plus page and you see these really silly videos or images from Flickr and you go, what is she up to? It's because we have these daily creates. And the one for yesterday was, it's the zombie apocalypse. choose your theme song and make a movie. I was telling Oliver last night, and make a movie about how you're going to survive. And so I'm not going to show it; it would be silly. But I Will Survive. But what was her name? Gail. Gail. It wasn't Donna Summers. That's what we thought last night. Gail Gaynor. Okay. But anyway, so I Will Survive, and then I was barricading my door, and then I stuck in the TARDIS, and I escaped in the TARDIS. So anyway, just learning to tell stories, and the beauty of it is, I know, is you do it, this British lady thought it was hilarious, but just learning to tell stories a little bit every day. You just spend like 15 minutes every day. And so I would say, if you have time this summer, you might check out DS106. It's quite a wonderful digital storytelling community. And I think that's what people need, to have a community to learn with and find mentors and test your wings and develop that confidence in yourself. All right,
Yeah,
enough about
I wouldn't have ever tried movie making. It sounds so daunting. But yeah, I think the focus, like that literature gives you, like a response to something. It gives you a purpose and something that you want to communicate versus just like go make a movie or create this thing that's very amorphous. I think that literature gives kids like a very specific thing to think about, and I think it's a good alternative to just a paper writing project kind of thing as well. I was going to say something else, but I don't remember what it was. I guess then my definition of digital storytelling would probably be that it's multimodal, mixed media, but it has the things that you want to be good at in writing are the same as they are in digital storytelling or regular storytelling, I guess. I do think it gives students a authentic audience, which Jill, you talked about. Do you want to expound on that? Unmute yourself first.
Thank you. My computer reminded me the same time you did. Yeah, I wrote on one of the on the Padlet that using the internet to publish your stories or using digital storytelling allows our students to have an authentic audience, because just sharing with their peers in class, which is great if you do it, or even just sharing with the teacher isn't really an authentic audience. And if the students know that they're creating something to kind of put out there and people are actually going to read it, they're going to have more of a purpose, and they're probably going to care more about what they're writing too.
Absolutely. I think it's like one of the downsides of the scholarly world, at least in my generation, was who's your professor, or who's your audience. It's always your professor, your teacher. There's no like authentic communication happening in paper writing or any kind of project like that. And I definitely think that digital storytelling or using these devices, I think that definitely breaks out of that mentality. It gives them a reason to consider like what kind of language they use and like why it's important to have the grammar or not or whatever. That we never really were taught to think through. It's just like, no, do it. So I definitely appreciate that. So what do we think about BYOD? Are we for or against?
I go back and forth. I really do.
Really?
I do. I feel like I'm such a big fan of it most of the time because it gives the students, it puts technology in their hands, and it's what they're using at home, so why wouldn't we use it at school and teach it at school? But then on the other hand, it just has so many issues that go with it too, especially the whole inequality piece of, some students not being able to afford nicer devices or have nicer devices. And even if you have a kid with like kind of an outdated tablet, and the kid next to him has this amazing iPad that is working 3 times faster and has all these different capabilities, it just doesn't really seem fair to me.
But Jill, isn't it better to be on the information highway than on the on-ramp and can't get on? I mean, even if you're not.
Yeah, and that's why I think that students should have technology. I just think that schools should provide it. I don't think it should. I mean, I know that that's where we are, that we don't have money in our schools to like have a one-to-one program, but I think we should. I think that schools should be the ones providing like Chromebooks, So it's not that I don't want them to have the technology. I just think that we should be providing it, or at least if we do have a BYOD policy, which honestly my school is really heading that way. We had a lot of kids bringing their own devices this year. We just didn't have an official policy. We just did it anyways. Um, I don't know. We just need more technology for the kids who can't bring it, I guess.
Sure. Anybody else?
I took a mobile learning course, MOOC, Massive Open Online Course with, so many countries and represented. And I was usually very embarrassed that we weren't using the capabilities of cell phones in our schools. And here were much economically poorer countries who were making the most out of it and doing amazing things. And we were like, oh, no, you can't bring your cell phone in class.
Yeah, I definitely agree that there shouldn't be a cell phone ban. I understand why there is, and I think Jill's right. There are a lot of issues that come with the technology. As far as internet capabilities, I mean, obviously, you have to make sure students are actually doing the work, paying attention, we've all been on our computers in class not doing the work, so I think it's naive to assume that's not going to happen. But from all the statistics I've read, it seems like there's no reason to fight the cell phone thing at this point because we're all using them anyways, and there are weaknesses and there are things that we still have to work through, but I agree. I think that we have to at least embrace that it's a positive possibility. What do you think about, is there a way to combat the inequality other than everyone being issued devices from the school?
Well, there were several articles I tweeted where schools were doing things like collecting used cell phones. There was an interesting one where a teacher was actually working. He got AT&T and Verizon and with this company software called GoNo, which supposedly turns your cell phone into a word processor. But it was an amazing story of a teacher activist, who pulled these resources together and got technology for his school. So, I am an eternal optimist. I think where there's a will, there's a way, especially if it's a teacher's will.
Sadie, what's it like for you?
There is really interesting thing in my school. Like as I wrote there, I usually collect all their cell phones, before each class. And if the students can control themselves, prevent themselves from checking the text and messages, anyway, they can keep the phone. And now there's only one class in our school. They are using the iPad to teach SAT. And the only two ways to control the students using cell phones in class is, one is they can only use BlackBerry phone in class, but it's not that easy for our students to buy BlackBerry. Each of them have iPhone 5, iPhone 5S. So they can only use BlackBerry. So if they don't have, the teacher will prepare the BlackBerry for each of the students. Another way is our school provide each student an iPad, but all the softwares there are downloaded from by our teachers. The students cannot download any other chat tools to the iPad. So these are the only two ways to control the students using cell phones in class. It's kind of ban the ways of how to use it, creatively.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, why do you guys use Blackberries?
We found that it's difficult to send messages or in China, a lot of people use BlackBerry only check the emails or have a video meeting with people in other countries. So sounds like it's limited. There are limited usage of.
Not as much as a touch screen would have. Interesting. Cool. All right. Do you guys want to say anything else about that before we move on?
We did use them. Like a lot of teachers in my school did have the kids bring in devices. I know in the 8th grade, one science teacher used them every single day. He had the kids, take quizzes on them and turn in homework and that kind of thing. And we've used them for QR codes. And then another app that we've used a couple of times this year at our school is Erasma.
Yeah,
I've heard of that.
My cooperating teacher at state used it.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so that's been kind of fun. And then one more thing, the science teachers in the 6th grade created a timeline that spanned like the whole hallway, and students helped create the different, like each student took a year. It was like about the space program, and then they could go around and scan QR codes and read articles that 6th graders had created about the different decades. It was really cool.
That is really cool. I've never used the QR code thing. Have you guys?
Yes, I've used it a little. I mean, I haven't used it. I guess I could have put it on a flyer for Friday night. I haven't really used it to send out information, but I've certainly picked up information using it.
Yeah, that's really cool. Awesome.
I haven't really used QR codes a lot personally.
Yeah. Have to check them out. I really honestly don't know how they work that much. Okay, so practically speaking, how do we balance using technology in our classrooms and traditional literacies? And I guess, should we, do we keep valuing the traditional literacy, or do we just embrace technology and keep going?
Can I show you something real quick? I've never tried to take over the screen. Let me see
Do it.
if this is going to work. If this is going to work for me. Okay. I think I can get it. Yeah. So I absolutely love the article that Sadie found about technology and how it's evolving. And it was written by a teacher, an elementary teacher, and his name was Mitch Champagne, and actually one of the tools that he recommended, Haiku Deck, I loved, because I'm always complaining about PowerPoints, and I know my weekly ones are not always beautiful, but I love designing really attractive slides, and Haiku Deck has the beauty of access to all of the, like I just put in evolving. I think I may have put in metamorphosis too. And it gives you all of these picture choices from Flickr Creative Commons, and it gives you the attribution at the bottom. So I learned stuff. I think you learn stuff from watching, learning how to make really attractive designs. Like I've not used the transparency function on the box color before. So since I did that, one book I'd recommend is called Presentation Zen by Gar Reynolds, and what he does so well is teach us we need to let the image rule when we create a slide, and those pointless bullet lists are just crazy. They're notes, and he would say, if you want to give notes, give handouts. Don't put your notes on the slides, okay? So Presentation Zen. But anyway, I definitely recommend that.
Who's the author of that? Garth
Reynolds.
Oh.
There you go. There you go. And so what I liked about this article is that it's an old picture of the Eva Perry group. When he talked about it's building on the traditional literacies through collaboration, creativity and creation, which we certainly talked enough about both of those in this class, authenticity, which I thought Oliver is a great example tonight. All right, I mean, we're hearing from teens in our class, right? So authenticity was being able to bring in guest speakers. And then I added one. I think that technology allows us or gives us more options for being reflective. Look at people who are blogging, not for any purpose, but it's a wonderful way to reflect, okay? So I thought this teacher really nailed it with those three, and I just add reflection And I think that's a good way of looking at how digital technology is helping us build on traditional literacies. Okay. And now I wanted to add one more thing, and then I'll be quiet again. I made a note that, and Jill posted this, and I really like this diagram. But the one thing, the ability to find and select information, stop short, because then you have to know how to analyze it and synthesize it and curate it, in terms of just being able to package it in a form that's retrievable and that communicates to other people. And one of my favorite curators is Maria Pavova, and she curates the brain pickings each week. I'll have to be sure and send that to you.
Cool.
Wonderful tool. Okay, I'm giving it up.
Okay. Does anybody else want to add anything to that question? If you get a chance, definitely read the article about TPAC. Have you guys heard of TPAC? Everybody? Yes. Okay. So I was able to take a mobile learning class last semester with Dr. Hervey, and she had just tons of great resources specifically on this topic, but she introduced us to this idea of TPAC, which is just kind of balancing technology, pedagogy, and content. I don't know what the K stands for. Content knowledge, maybe. But it's definitely really interesting to think about. There's a lot of really good visuals and diagrams in it as well. And I think for me, and I think it might change for different teachers, but I think that technology should be like a mode of content and pedagogy and not like the main thing. As wonderful as it is, it's a tool to help us do the things that we're already doing. And like Dr. Chrisman said, maybe to enable us to do them better, with the idea of kids having to think more critically in what they're using, and being able to reflect better or more. So yeah, that's kind of my answer to the question, I think. But okay, so for question 3, we didn't do a lot on the Padlet, so I was going to do this collective activity. It's called Chalk something. I can't remember what the
Chalk Talk. Chalk Talk.
Okay, so you're supposed to do it with actual chalk, but since we are online, if you got the link I sent you for the pad, if you could go to that. Did everybody get it?
Is it? Can you put it in the chat? Or
yes, I think so. Let's see. I can always share the screen, I guess, again too. But sorry, I have like a million things.
Thank you.
Sure.
We got it.
Everybody good?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Cool. I'll get off the screen share too. You can see all my open tabs. Okay, so this was one question that we didn't really tackle so much. It's how does our understanding of literacy and literature change with the incorporation of either bring your own device or just technology in general in the classroom? And this activity is actually silent, so you can mute your microphones, and at any time that you feel you have an answer or any thought that you want to add, just kind of jot it down, and then once everybody's done, we'll just kind of go over what everybody said. So it's pretty much, if you want to think about it, jot some things down to yourself, and then add whenever you want to, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Make sense?
You know, is that link? That's not the link that's in the chat.
Yeah, sorry, I linked the Padlet.
Oh, that's okay. No, I can redo it. No problem.
Thanks, Bethany.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
Work.
If you just right-click on it, then, well, on most mice, you can copy link location, and you won't lose this screen. So.
Yeah, you can open it in another link or window or tab or whatever.
Yeah.
All right, are we done? Okay. Thank you guys for participating. I don't think we have a ton of time to talk about it, but you can read what everybody wrote on your own time, and it was definitely a productive conversation.
Yeah, I think so too. I've seen this done many times. In some cases, you would say, well, it's sort of silly when people are, could be talking, but isn't it interesting to watch the thinking going on? I've seen this done with students with forums where everybody would post to a forum. I mean, they'd be in class and they'd be posting the forum, and it would just bump the level of critical thinking and way up when they wrote it down. Public writing is very powerful. Okay, well, thank you, Bethany. Let's give a big round of applause for leading us through this. And as all of our topics, we touch on things 5 weeks. But hopefully there's enough resources that as the summer goes on, as you work in other courses, you can build on what we've begun here. Let me take over. Let me take the screen again, Power Monger here, and show you some things for next week because we need to get ready for, did I grab it? No. Yeah, there it is. Next week and what's going to happen. It's going to be the same sort of thing in that we're going to do a collaborative critical inquiry. And this is sort of the steps that I'm envisioning. And we can work on this as we sort of work through. What I'm seeing is using a collaborative critical inquiry with a focus on critical thinking and reflection with students and building in the books, okay? And it's much like Jill was describing her unit on peak, on survival, and you had nonfiction pieces. Well, I would like for us to start with a nonfiction book. Okay, so each of us would have a nonfiction book that we would find and would develop a pre, during, post activity for. And it can be on any level because we're just sort of, this is not for one class we have in mind. This is on actually a compelling question about a theme. And I think we had pretty much decided the theme would be belonging. Okay? And you will see if you go to the link for this week for week 4 archives, I have a TED video because I want us to expand on this idea of what belonging means. I don't know if you've seen Renee Brown. It's one of the top 10 TED Talks of all times. And she defines belonging as connecting. Connecting is empathy, love, and belonging. Makes sense in our digital age, all about connecting. And the book I've chosen is going to be No Crystal Stare. And I love, it's the book about Louis Michaud, who in a really roundabout life, talk about one pathway leading to the next and then dead ending, but created a bookstore, founded a bookstore in Harlem. Oh, and I was going to make a recommendation. I read this book like blog, all the notes that I took from this with quotes and stuff. And the beauty of keeping a book log is that you can refresh your memory at any time and talk books with students and find books for students. So I definitely recommend it. But oh, we're running over time. I won't even bother to read the quote, but I'll tell you more about the book. But that's the book I've chosen. It's a nonfiction book. And so choose a nonfiction book. After you watch the video, choose a scaffolding question. Or you may have other sources on belonging, So, but it's one I'm offering up. But choose a scaffolding question and find a book that will help you explore that question. Does that make sense? And develop a reader response. And I did talk briefly last week. Reader response is both pre and post, okay? And really during. And an example I gave was if I were going to introduce a class to, or a student to Maggot Moon, I would talk about the Think Different commercial. The whole promotion and how do you think different? Tell a story about the time that how you thought different made a difference. So you need some way to scaffold to engage students with the book, so some activity. this is just sort of a draft for me. And then during the reading, so I had said I would respond to this prompt by, sketching, make something, make a photograph, make a poem, multimodal. Does a bookstore or library have a spirit or soul? What do you think? Okay. During, I would actually use book clubs, and I would have my students create some way to chronicle their reading and discussion of the book, whether it's a group blog, an annotated timeline, a mind map, a mural, video interviews. You see what I mean? I'm trying to get some way that you've got the collaboration going, you've got critical thinking hopefully going on. And then for my post, discuss, oh, you know what, I didn't even read my scaffolding question. I'm going way too fast, but we're over time. How can you care or give back to the groups you belong to? Is my scaffolding question. And so the post is discuss the issues, multiple perspectives on them included in the book that are related to our scaffolding question. And do something, make art, do something, start a campaign, produce a documentary video, do something on that issue or topic. And then you reflect on it. And the reflection is really the only thing that's done individually, perhaps, or perhaps the pre would be too. So that in a nutshell, and I'm going to flesh that out and make it a lot stronger, you'll see. Because, as Rainbow Rowell said, kids have the right to read, they have the right to think and imagine, to see their own world in books, to see other worlds in books, and then to create. That's what we're thinking about when we think about intellectual freedom. And you'll see a quote there by Ashley, one of my 7th graders, who talked about how hard it was, but at the end it was something really beautiful to create. I wanted to give a quick shout out, Oliver, and our big event tomorrow night. Come out. It starts at 8:30. Oliver, we do need to remind people that before 9, everything is general audience, right?
That is honestly not something I had thought of.
Yeah.
Although I feel like by the time 8:30 we can stop worrying about small children, because
we'll talk more about this.
Yeah. That would
Okay.
be a thing, because I honestly haven't thought of it much. I know that we're all aware that the store closes at 9, so if you're coming to the event, be here by 9.
Yeah. Okay. So please join us, and then schedule for the final week. Your nonfiction contribution will be part of this interdisciplinary collaborative critical inquiry. It's interdisciplinary because we could have chosen any theme, and we're going with belonging, which does have a neurobiological. When you hear a TED speech, you'll hear about that basis too. Live class next week. I would. If you can pull this together, this unit by Wednesday, then people would have a chance to look at it, and we would talk about it on Thursday. But let's see how that goes. I know Sadie's going to work you pretty hard. And then the final exam is your funds of knowledge. You go back and update it with what you've learned in the 5 weeks. I can stretch that. Grades don't have to be in until Thursday, the 26th. And so if you've other classes and it would be better for you, I don't mind at all if you do that, up until Wednesday. And I would, after you finish that, just like to meet with you for like 10 or 15 minutes just as an exit conference. Okay? And then the other thing is our class is too small for class eval. So I will make up just a little short survey to get some feedback from you anonymously. Okay? Any questions?
I'm kind of confused about next week.
Yeah, please.
So we're each creating a CCI for our students to use surrounding a book that we read that has to do with a scaffolding question we make up that has to do with the idea of belonging. How does that tie into what Sadie's doing and how next week is going to work?
What Sadie's doing is coordinating the effort. And so I guess in a way you are developing a collaborative critical inquiry for the book for that scaffolding question, but it's part of the bigger question.
Okay.
And I think it would be good to think about how this might work if you did use different books. Would you have an introduction. What might you do as an introduction to this belonging? You see what I mean? Sort of put it
Yeah.
together, and it's something that actually, you know, other teachers could come and look at and go, oh, it's a collaborative critical inquiry. We've got these nonfiction books, and each of those has activities within themselves. And then see that after each group does that scaffolding question inquiry, they pull back together. And so if you could find some way, it would be really wonderful to have, I'd intended to show you Paideia theory, Paideia seminars, but it'd be really wonderful to do, like, even do a Paideia seminar at the end. I like to do those at the beginning and the end of a unit. So think of some way to pull it together, and Sadie's leading that.
Okay, so we're going to have the document that you showed us of yours with the different ideas. We're going to have 3 separate ones of those, or one that we work on all together?
I'll let you decide that. It would be good to have one, and Sadie's already created a Google Doc, that if you do something on Weebly or on Pinterest, or, you know, wherever, you have your freedom where you want to put your stuff, but you just link back. Or you put your link there too. Yeah, you know what I mean. Any other questions? And I'll hang around too if anybody has any specific questions. Any other good questions for the good of the cause?
Does the nonfiction book have to be like YA centered?
It does need to be a YA book, yeah.
Can it be a nonfiction graphic article or graphic novel?
Oh yeah, it could be.
Sequential art, sorry.
Yes, it could be. Well, and it could, again, sequential art covers comics and graphic novels and, you know, the whole shebang, web comics and everything. So, but I guess technically, if it's nonfiction, it's not a graphic novel.
Right.
Any other questions? If you'd like to go ahead, last week I know that Laia talked about how her class studied, night. I think it was night. Yes. Well, I've got a great clip that you can watch and see where we use something called reading apprenticeship. And it's actually reading a whole group reading of a book, but using structured book clubs or literature circles to study chapter by chapter. Anyway, it might be very helpful. So check out the week 4 page. And if there are no other questions, please, let me grab the link. Give me some feedback. The feedback that I got last time, I didn't get a lot, but what I did was really helpful, and it was, here you go. It was, and this is on the week 4 archive too. It was add more authenticity. This person really liked the guest readers, Laia, and that they felt the awkward moment was the question about your cultural digital footprint. But that doesn't mean it's not a good question if it makes you feel like disequalized, you know, just makes you think more maybe. Okay, so you guys, thanks for the feedback and thanks for a great session. Do I see? Yeah. I was just checking the chat. And we'll see you guys next week. Stay in touch.
Bye.
Bye-bye.